it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So today we have a guest in an unusual profession, and there's times I love to bring new, interesting, and different women to the show who've built careers that might not be the ones that we know about or that we realize, yet they're businesses that have grown and make an impact, and so much for us to learn. And that's why today we're going to talk to Lee Powers. She's a nurse, a health advocate, speaker dedicating to helping individuals improve their health, build resilience, and thrive through personal wellness strategies. She combines her clinical expertise with a compassionate, whole person approach. She empowers people to take an active role in their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Lee has been at this a long time, and I can go on and on talking about her and how her journey to be building her company has had some twists and turns. Yet, Lee, I'm so excited to have you on Her Success Story today that you can share a little bit of your journey and inspire women to take a step into what is meaningful for each of us, even though sometimes it's a little off the beaten path.
Thank you, Ivy. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be here for your listeners.
So I'm going to say, I will start off by saying when I started Slater Success, it was 2007, and um, coaching it was not known, right? I remember when I heard about this, it's like I owned a printing company, very successful, and I knew I hit a wall and said, like, somebody mentioned this whole coaching industry, and I went and hit Google, as we did and we often do, although now it has a little bit of Chatter Claude in it. Um, and it took me to page 3 to understand that it was not soccer or tennis or the traditional things we know. And when we think about healthcare, we think about, oh, going to the doctor. Oh, you don't do, so you do functional medicine, or you do like Western medicine as opposed to Eastern medicine, or Eastern medicine as opposed to Western medicine. Lee, your journey has been different, and where you step into the healthcare world is at a unique place. So can you share a little bit of your catalyst in getting started and where you are today?
Absolutely. So I really thought that I had everything figured out with my business plan and how things were going to go. And sometimes the best laid plans take us in a little bit different direction. So I was finishing up my nurse practitioner degree, and I was working full time as a nurse on a critical care unit. And uh, really unplanned, out of nowhere, I was expecting to be joining my classmates soon for graduation. I ended up with a violent assault that night, my last night that I went in, and ended up in a critical care unit myself on a ventilator, aware of everything that was happening when you're not supposed to be. So I was awake while looking asleep. And that ended my career as I knew it. But what I did with that experience is I learned a tremendous amount of really valuable information on how to help people in many different ways, from finding out which medications we get that impact people differently based on their personalized DNA, to the fact that people could be awake and aware in comas, which I did not know as a healthcare professional.
And that's really interesting because we think healthcare professionals are the people with the answers, right?
Right.
Yet, and you would think, a medical coma is to give body time to rest and heal, and um, yet you knew everything that was going on around you.
I did. And
So
oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. As awful as that sounds, and I don't want to minimize it, it was horrific for me. And probably if I often think if fear could kill you, I would not be sitting here today in front of you. That's how much the terror was for me in that situation. And I now work with clients, business owners, sometimes get asked questions about families, people that in their lives are transitioning, and I can share with them this valuable information that I think is so important, that regardless what you are told about someone's level of consciousness, if they are passing and transitioning from this world, hold their hand, tell them the things that you want them to know. And I think that is an incredible gift because, like you said, Ivy, we expect our healthcare professionals to have all the answers. And I can tell you, they do not always have all the answers.
So you went from a very, very truly horrific experience when you were on a career trajectory. As you got well, how did you figure out what was next for you? What is the process of building the business you have today coming out of a traumatic situation?
I wish I could say it was really simple. It was not.
I wish we could
It,
all say it was simple, and I could only imagine how much it wasn't simple because we
right.
have to put the healing first, and then as we heal, we can create possibility for us. And also, Leah, I have to say, hats off to you for being open to stepping into possibility next.
And that's really what it was. After I learned how to walk, talk, and care for myself again, because those were all things that I needed to do. And most people are very surprised when they see me today when I share with them, I actually lived in an assisted living for several years during my recovery with folks that were, 80 and 90 years old, and everyone had their own walker. So the first thing after I kind of got through the rebuilding my body was to change, my mind about some things. I had so much grief about not being able to finish the clinical part of the nurse practitioner degree. And I really was focused on, got to get back to it, need to do that. And while intellectually I could have done that, physically I would have had some challenges. So the first thing I needed to do was change my mind about what was
So
possible.
it starts with mindset,
Yes.
as
Yes.
so much does, as so much does. There is one thing to make a decision we're going to do something. There's another thing to create a possibility and a mindset to see that possibility, even when so many around us do not.
Right. Right. And part of that possibility was, how can I take the lessons learned when I was the patient in the bed and help the next business owner, family, really everyone that has a health challenge that ends up with a loved one who is receiving medication, for example, to learn some important lessons that I did not know and the providers did not know. So that was a huge first step. I really didn't, I knew there was personalized medicine out there, but I didn't know that it had such a big impact and that a simple cheek swab, had I had it before I went into the hospital, could have perhaps saved me from 2.5 weeks of hospital time, not waking up, no one being able to figure it out. This was a level 1 trauma center at one of the best critical care units in the country. And I thought, if they don't know, what do I need to figure out to understand this?
So, moving from nurse practitioner into building the business you have today, you reference a cheek swab, which I know
Yes.
is something that you have shared with me personally, part of your process in understanding your clients, your patients. Share a little bit what you're referring to and why that's impactful.
Sure. So, in traditional healthcare in the United States today, and even some other countries, although some other countries are a little more advanced than us and have moved beyond the way that we practice, we basically assume everyone processes medications the same. And so, if you're going in for a surgery, pretty much, unless you happen, to get someone that's a little more advanced, I would say 98% of the time you're going to get prescribed the same medicine as your neighbor, your cousin, your fellow business owners at the same dose every single time. Now, they're going to vary from that if you come in and you have an allergy, obviously, or sometimes you'll have a physician or team that will listen if you say, I had that back when I was 7 and my
Right.
mom noted. But in general, you're going to get the same thing every time. And we don't process medications the same. Our DNA, which we can get from a simple cheek swab,
Hence the
can
cheek
actually,
swab, I was going to say,
yes,
and hence the
yes,
cheek swab, we could figure out our
yes.
DNA.
Our genes and how our genes influence not only the ability to break down certain medications or not. And the reason that's important is if you're given something that you can't utilize or break down or metabolize, then you can have really horrific side effects. You cannot wake up from a coma. You can um, just not respond at all, meaning that you can wake up from a surgery and be in terrible pain and no one can figure that out. So there's lots of, and it can also tell us, how like you talk to your neighbor and they're like, oh, I took this medicine and I was doing rehab and I was doing just great. And you're like, I hurt like a lot. And why did it work for her or them
Yeah.
and
Right.
not for
Why
me?
does this work for this one and not this one? And you know, yeah, with women, everything from sometimes it's UTIs or yeast. Like, why does this work and not this work? There's so much with this, just has that big question mark.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the simple cheek swab can also tell us in, with certain medications, it can tell us, do you need the normal dose? Will the normal dose work for you, Ivy? Or do you need a smaller dose because the normal dose might, have you so snowed under you can't open your eyes or cause other bad side effects. And maybe you process medicines really quickly. And we know metabolism matters because why can some people like eat lots of food and not gain a pound and other people cannot? Kind of the same concept with medications. Some people need more of a medication than the standard dose. Otherwise, they're not going to get the effect that we're looking for. So that is why.
So tell me about the business you have today. So our listeners could truly understand a little bit in your journey of like there was some bumps in the road, there were some ups and downs. By far, you started learning about this, and then we're like, okay, I could hear my listeners like in the background saying, okay, Lisa, where's the business? Like, what is the business model? What do you do? Like, who calls you? Right?
Right,
Because
right.
it's so I'm curious. When we first were connected through mutual friends, it's like it sparked my curiosity.
Right. Thank you for being curious. So I took the challenges in my healthcare journey and combined it with the theoretical education that I did complete because I completed all of the theoretical education as a nurse practitioner. I'm just not prescribing.
Hmm.
So coming to me is different than a regular practitioner because I'm literally taking what I learned as a practitioner with what I learned as a patient, and then really doing a deep dive into personalized medicine, which most people are not using the way that we should and we can. And also, I do offer just a different perspective in that I'm a very good researcher. And let's say this week, I had a client come to me and her dad was diagnosed with dementia.
Mm.
He was put on the standard medication at the standard dose. She asked about clinical trials. She was told he doesn't qualify, he's too far progressed. And there were so many things that were missing in that one particular case. And this is someone, near and dear to the hearts of this family. No one looked at, were there other factors that maybe didn't cause the dementia, but could be contributing to the progression or slowing down the process? There was simply no attention paid to all these other factors that contribute to a really devastating diagnosis. And many people, including the physicians that care for them, do not know that there are other things other than clinical trials. There are some medications and some peptides even. The GLP-1s are peptides that are used in certain situations now, and they can be used with the appropriate medical doctor and supervision to bring in certain elements of care that a traditional setting of us waiting 20 to 40 years while the FDA clinical trials finish
Figures it out.
figures it out. Exactly.
So people reach out to you, and you've become known over time on looking a little deeper,
Yes.
not
Yes.
taking um, the basic facts of what medical communities say to you and say, this is the way it is, but to look that level deeper, understand each of us as an individual, which don't we want to be known as? I mean, mental health has given us, and the expansion knowledge around mental health has given us this ability to be unique in all of our own ways.
Yes.
Yet medically, we don't look at ourselves as unique. We categorize ourselves on a consistent basis.
Yes. Yes.
So what can I was going to say the average Joe Schmo who knows nothing, but something comes up. What can we learn? What do we do? What are some of the actions we can take?
Well, the first thing, whether someone works with me or not, the very first thing you need in today's environment in healthcare is you need an advocate.
Okay.
You need someone to help you navigate, ask questions that you may not know to ask, and more importantly, take note of what is given to you because it can be very frightening and there's a lot going on, and you need a second person in the room, so to speak, to help stand by you, hold your hand through the process, and make sure you come out the other side the best that you can be.
And so it's somebody who, and I remember years ago in the early stages of her success story, I interviewed somebody and it made so much sense to me. And this is, you've just hit on it. When we talk about that advocate, it's an advocate who understands both sides, right? It's not somebody who just gets the medicine, but somebody who gets human. And from based on your own journey, you've had the human experience, unfortunately, that brings you to a different level of compassion for your clients.
Right, right. I definitely when I write, when I speak, there's this, I use those terms that you just so eloquently came up with, Ivy. I say, I want to humanize medicine again. I want
And
people to
that
see the
makes sense.
person. Yes.
It's and more and more in the medical area, um, it's becoming very, very big business. You know, practices are being bought up by large companies, some private equity, and medicine is becoming the business, which in a lot of ways is great because we want things to run efficiently and effectively like a business, but we don't want to lose the client. We don't want to lose the patient. So, what if I asked you would be one tip you would share forward to our listeners today in taking care of our own medical needs?
Don't try not to get caught up on, or again, with the advocate, with the healthcare professional that you know, with the nurse down the street, if they are able to look at the big picture and not just, small elements. Don't get caught up in all the advertising and marketing. There are a lot of influencers now out in the medical field that, they're saying, if you're just gluten free, you're going to fix your gut. And if you just do this, and it puts a lot of stress, I think, on the individual patient or client.
Yeah.
And first of all, it usually isn't that simple. I wish I could say it was. But just focusing on one thing or thinking if you do this one thing that you're going to, help yourself through this particular health challenge, it may work, but it may not. And I had another client this week that was so focused on staying off sugar, dairy, and gluten free that she was basically starving herself because what the influencer, who was a very famous physician, I'm not going to name names or anything, but he's out there promoting all this. And I said, the piece they're forgetting to share with you is what you can eat.
So they're eliminating so much, but they're not empowering you to make smart decisions in what you can do. And
Yes.
I have to tell you, Lee, so many times, so many times, I come from a what can I do attitude. What can I do? When we're faced with an obstacle, what can I do? And so often with our own health, when anybody medical or an influencer, etc., says, this is what you should do, we're like, okay, okay. And we don't question.
Mhm. Right. Question, seek, listen to your gut. And I mean
For
that,
lack of a
an
better word.
expanded, well, an expanded way, not, because, if someone is telling you this one thing or, if it sounds too good to be true, like it probably
It's
is.
too
I,
good to be true.
yeah, I try, really, really try to like bring, um, possibility into the discussion and the work, but also to not, to not oversimplify or make it sound like if you just did this one thing, you would be healed. The complexity of everyone's, individual personalized situation, I think is the best healing that we can do for ourselves.
Well said. Definitely well said. So let me finish this with what has surprised you in building your company today?
I think the biggest surprise is I made the assumption that other people, other organizations, other practitioners were going to incorporate some of the information that I had learned into their practices and someone else was going to do it. And then I discovered that it wasn't happening. So I decided that I was going to do it.
When you see something that is not happening, we take control. And that's a beautiful message to leave with today. Of when you see it opening, you see a problem that is not yet solved, there's a business there as you step in and you solve it. And there's so many people affected. So, Lee, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for joining me today on Her Success Story.
Thank you very much, Ivy. It was indeed a pleasure to speak with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And listeners, this is what I like to say as we close the show. Take a deep breath in. We don't do that often enough in a day. Stop and breathe. And identify one point from today that was meaningful to you. Lee left me with several points that were meaningful to me. Write it down somewhere. I don't care if it's your phone, if you're jotting it on your phone on a list or your computer or a good old-fashioned pen and paper. But then make a decision of what are you going to do with this takeaway. Create the action. Showing up every week on Her Success Story, I hope for you to take away consistent actions that make a difference in your life, your business, and your world. Thank you for joining us. If this was helpful to you, please pass the episode forward, rate us with a beautiful 5-star, and tune in next week as we drop new episodes every Monday morning. See you next time.